Quantos de vocês estão empolgados, tanto quanto eu, para escutar Blair Singer, um dos maiores professores e líderes de todos os tempos? Se você está tão animada como eu, escreve aqui Blair nos comentários, aqui no chat, para a gente ir interagindo. Sejam todos muito bem-vindos. Meu nome é Ariane Barros.
E eu sou Hanna Meirelles, que prazer estar aqui com vocês. Sejam muito bem-vindos. Bem-vindos ao nosso canal aqui da Life Level 10 no YouTube. A gente está inaugurando esse canal hoje com essa primeira entrevista que importa, que é um quadro muito especial que a gente criou para você, líder, educador, para que vocês possam estar aqui aproveitando e aprendendo sempre. Então, sejam muito bem-vindos a essa entrevista, que hoje vai ser maravilhosa. E a gente espera trazer mais entrevistas maravilhosas e incríveis cada vez mais para vocês.
Com certeza, Hanna, é uma alegria imensa. E eu já queria começar agradecendo. Eu queria agradecer a todo mundo que está aqui ao vivo com a gente, prestigiando esse lançamento tão especial, de uma forma tão especial. E eu sei que todo mundo aqui tem milhões de outras coisas, poderiam estar aí fazendo outras coisas, mas vocês escolheram estar aqui com a gente, e isso é muito especial. Eu sei que o tempo de vocês é extremamente precioso. Então, eu só queria dizer muito obrigada. É uma honra para a gente ter vocês aqui para assistir essa entrevista. Sejam muito bem-vindos mais uma vez.
É isso aí, Ari. Então, mais uma vez, bem-vindos. Tem mais gente chegando aqui. Para a gente é um privilégio poder não só estar aqui com vocês, mas é uma honra também poder entrevistar Blair Singer, né? E transmitir essa entrevista para vocês, que são líderes, que são educadores, que têm suas próprias empresas ou que trabalham com líderes e com educadores também. A gente sabe que tem algumas pessoas de recursos humanos, por exemplo, assistindo a essa entrevista, pessoas do marketing, pessoas que trabalham nas áreas de vendas, nas áreas comerciais e que estão aqui para aprender um pouco mais. Então, para a gente é um privilégio estar com vocês.
É isso aí. E agora, fica tranquilo, pessoal, que a gente legendou a entrevista inteira para vocês com muito carinho, para que todos os brasileiros, né, pudessem ter acesso a esse conteúdo, a esse ser humano que é muito especial, que é o Blair Singer, e aos ensinamentos dele. Agora, antes da gente começar, eu queria já pedir, né, pessoal? Quem ainda não se inscreveu, se inscreve no nosso canal. A gente está preparando tanta coisa bacana, preparando com muito amor, com muita dedicação. Eu tenho certeza que vocês vão gostar muito. Então, não deixem de se inscrever aqui no nosso canal, de ativar as notificações para que você não perca nada do que a gente vai trazer aqui para você nas próximas semanas, nos próximos meses, que vai ser muito bacana. E siga a gente também, se você não segue, nas redes sociais, é Life Level 10.
É isso aí. A Life Level 10 é uma organização de educação e desenvolvimento de lideranças. E se vocês estão assistindo esse vídeo aqui agora, ou estão participando ao vivo, ou mesmo vendo um pouquinho depois, você vai querer acompanhar esse nosso canal, você vai querer ver as nossas entrevistas e todos os demais vídeos que a gente vai começar a partir de agora a colocar aqui para você. Muito conteúdo para te ajudar nessa tua jornada de liderança.
Isso aí, Hanna. E essa entrevista, gente, ela é muito especial, porque Hanna conseguiu, né, teve essa oportunidade, essa grande oportunidade de entrevistar o Blair, que não é uma coisa muito fácil, porque ele tem uma agenda, assim, super concorrida, né? Nós duas somos alunas do Blair, aprendemos muito com ele, mas deixa de blá 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 então, né? E sem mais delongas, vamos logo começar essa entrevista. Vocês estão preparados, gente?
Se você está preparado, é só colocar aí no chat para a gente também. Se o chat estiver disponível para você agora, diz que você está pronto para a gente poder começar. E só um recado, antes de eu dar um play aqui nessa entrevista, a gente vai voltar, assim que a entrevista acabar, você pode aguardar 2 segundinhos, a gente vai voltar e eu vou estar aqui com vocês para dar alguns recadinhos finais e para saber o que foi que vocês aprenderam, o que foi que vocês tiraram dessa entrevista. Talvez eu faça uma pergunta ou outra para vocês, mas vocês também vão poder fazer perguntas para a gente, né? Nós trabalhamos com o Blair já há bastante tempo, então quem sabe a gente não consegue responder algumas das perguntas, caso você tenha alguma pergunta por aí. Então, prontos? Vamos nessa? Então, aguarda só 2 segundinhos para a gente já dar o play aqui e você conseguir ver a entrevista. Então, daqui a pouquinho a gente volta aqui ao vivo. Aproveitem, essa entrevista foi gravada para vocês. Aproveitem.
Hello, hello, Life Level 10 community. My name is Hanna and welcome for this interview that matters. Thank you so much for being here watching us. We know that your time is extremely precious, so we only bring to you content that really matters, content that it is important to you, that is going to somehow transform your life. So today we have a very special guest here with us. He is my mentor. He has been my coach, and I've known him for the last 8.5 years. And he is such an inspiration, not only to myself, but to everybody that he meets around, around his life. It is every person that has had a contact with him throughout his life have been touched, have been transformed somehow. So I want to bring him here today to be with you. And during the last 30 years, he was working, helping organizations and teams in the entire world. And I mean the entire world, because I've met this guy in India, in Thailand, in Singapore, in Australia, in the UK, in the US, in so many other countries, in Brazil. So in the entire world, he has been doing this work to make organizations and teams grow and make an impact on the planet. He has worked with companies such as Singapore Airlines. I'm sure you have heard of some of those companies, HSBC and L'Oreal. L'Oreal, like the leave-in cream hair products. Yes, that one. So he has trained their leaders and workforces in there as well, and among many other companies in the world. Have you also heard of Robert Kiyosaki? Robert Kiyosaki, that guy who wrote this book over here, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So Robert has a team of great and senior advisors, the Rich Dad advisors, and our guest today is one of the Rich Dad advisors, and he has been also best friends with Robert Kiyosaki since 1982. In 1982, just to give you an idea, I was only 1 year old. So just for you to understand how massive is his experience, our guest experience and learnings that he's going to share with us here today. He's also the best-selling author of many books. I have all of them here behind me in English, in Portuguese. That's how his books have been important to me, to my life, and to many people around the world. And I hope that we can talk today about his next book that is coming up. And it is going to be a transformational book. I know that, I'm sure of it. I can't wait to read it. And I can't wait for you to have access to that as well. And he also is the founder of Blair Singer Training Academy, which is, we call it BSTA. It's an academy that certifies trainers, leaders, and teachers globally. I have the blessing of being one of those teachers, one of those leaders that was trained by our guest here today, because he is called the trainer of the trainers. Every great trainer in the planet, in some stage of their careers, they met with and they were taught by our guest today. Okay, so I want to welcome and I want to ask you all to welcome here Blair Singer. So thank you, Blair, for being here with us. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
Well, thank you. I mean, the things you said are just very kind, very generous. And when you start putting it into perspective, it seems all those years just went by really, really quickly. So I'm honored to be here, and whatever I can do to support your teams and your tribes, that's what I'm here for.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So my first question to you is this. You are a great teacher. You are a great leader. I'm a living testimony of that. I've learned so much with you during this last almost 9 years. And you always say teachers are leaders and leaders are teachers. Why?
Well, we could be here for about 4 hours, really. But the truth of it is that in this day and age, if you're leading a group of people, if you have a business, if you have a family, if you have a group of people, it's one thing to be able to lead them, but in a world that is so complex, in a world that has so many variables, that has so much resistance, it's critical that you're not only leading, but you also need to teach. Now, why? And the reason why is because most of the things that most human beings want to learn and need to learn are not being taught in school. They're just not. Things, I think that if I asked everybody here to write down maybe the 3 things that you want to learn the most, I guarantee you calculus and geography is not going to be on that list. What's going to be on the list are things like wealth, health, happiness, relationship, parenting, these, and where are you going to learn these things? So the need for leaders to actually teach, not to be school teachers, but to be able to teach people how to work together, how to collaborate, how to communicate well, is priceless. If you own a business or run a business, you know that it's critical. Where are you going to send them to learn it? You're not, because there's no place to send them. And that's why we created the Blair Singer Training Academy to create the best teachers and leaders in the world. So your question was twofold. So the first question was, why do leaders need to be teachers? Well, that's one reason why. And why do teachers need to be leaders? Well, the reason for that is because the minute you get on a camera or you get in front of a room of people, instinctively, without your desire for it, yes or no, is that people look at you differently. They assume that you're an authority. They assume that you have something to share. So that puts a responsibility on top of you. So just to teach is not enough. You got to lead. Just to lead is not enough. You got to teach. And I would say now, as we're recording this in 22, actually, I would say, about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, it wasn't as pressing. Today, it's not optional. It has to be done. I mean, the amount of narrative and craziness that goes on in the world can drive a person to distraction, and it really does. And mental health is on the uprise, and the decline in mental health is on the uprise, I should say. Confusion, loss of jobs, people quitting their jobs. All these things need guidance, need mentors, need people that can support them in real life, real time. And it's not about just telling people what to do, which is probably the worst form of teaching. It's about teaching people how to think for themselves, to come to their own conclusions. And that's what I'm saying. I could go on and on and on, but the new book, as you related to Summit Leadership, really talks about that. How do you be a leader and a teacher? And if as a teacher, how do you become a leader at the same time? And it's not about going back to school and learning stuff. It's an awareness, a sensitivity, and a core set of skills.
Excellent. Thank you. So you were saying, and I just remember that after my very first class with you, I realized that I could never watch other people's classes in the same way. It opened up my eyes, because you definitely made me think in a completely different way. So as leaders, as teachers as well, we all have that, I guess, that responsibility of unlocking other people's minds and our students' potential, right? So my question now to you is, who is Blair Singer, the teacher? The teacher that unlocks people's potentials. How would you describe yourself, and what are the different things that you do in your classrooms?
Well, there's a simple answer and a complicated answer. And the complicated one, I'm going to say, I'm not going to share because I haven't figured it out yet. So I don't know really all the answers to that, but simply I'm just a person who had an aspiration to do something better than just have a job someday. I grew up on a farm, a 550-acre farm in northeastern Ohio in the United States, and watched my dad work his butt off, never make much money, but he was a good father and a good husband to my mom. And I had amazing role models. And so it was just about, I think my life is, people say, your life is a journey. Mine was not a journey. My life has been an adventure. And the reason I call it an adventure is because the difference between an adventure and a journey is risk. There's an assumption with an adventure that there's unknowns and there's risk. And I think if there's a motto of my life, it's kind of like, I was joking with Robert Kiyosaki the other day, and we both laughed, is that one of the mottos of my life is this: well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. You know, it's like you take on projects, you do things because they look like they'd be fun, they look like they'd add value. You get in the middle of it, and then everything hits the fan. You're going, oh my God, what was I thinking? And now you got to figure your way out of the mess. And that's been kind of the story of my life. Not that it's been a mess, but it's like challenge after challenge after challenge, with always the desire just to get better, not to be anybody special, but just to get better. And I found that of all the things that I did, the most satisfaction I got was watching other people, watching the what do you call it, the cloudiness in their eyes disappear, to watch a certain level of clarity about their lives, what they want to do, and how they can make a difference. And I thought that I would be a corporate executive one, and I didn't want to do that. Then I moved to Hawaii, and I thought that I'm going to be a swing dude or a sailor for a while. That got old after a while. I was going to own a surf shop and open a series of surf shops around the world. So it was one thing after another. And I took a personal development program when I had moved to Hawaii that changed my life. I mean, in 15 minutes, the trainer put up a flip chart on responsibility that completely changed my life. And I became an avid, what would you call it, warrior, pursuant, or whatever, to just really find out how to get my mind back, how to get control of my own mind, and I figured the more I could clean up whatever's going on inside that was inconsistent, or the more obstacles in my life that I could solve and fix, the wealthier I would become, the happier I become. And so all these years later, it's really kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, I just want to find, I think that if the person, whoever's watching this right now, and I'd ask you a question. And the question is this: do you hope, or do you figure that there's a bigger, better person inside of you that hasn't quite come out yet? I mean, I know that when I met you, Hanna, is that you and many other people have responded to that question. And we kind of, as human beings, think that, there's something bigger in here. There's something more in here. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it. And some people get discouraged by it and depressed. Other people get very motivated by it, and you're absolutely one of them. And all of our BST trainers are those kind of people, that there's a certain magic that's still in there that just want to find out, and I don't think that urge ever goes away. It never goes away. People say, when are you going to retire? I'm going, I don't understand that term really. I get it, but I'm still learning. So I guess I'm going to read lots of books, go up and down Kilimanjaro 10 times, travel to over 40 countries around the world, working with people. And it just seems part of the deal. It doesn't seem like, whoa, we're going on a trip to India. It's like, no, this is part of the work, part of the job, part of the adventure.
Excellent. Thank you. That's excellent to hear. I'm participating during this week of a conference in India, actually, but I'm in Brazil, so it's an online conference. It's called Education and Leadership, right? Or Education Leadership. But it talks about all those aspects that we are sharing with each other here in this interview, because especially the power of that personal development, right? When you went to that personal development training or a seminar and you learn from another teacher an aspect about yourself, about your life that made you a better person, and right. Helped you discover what was inside of you, and the message that you want to put it out there to everybody else, and how you want to help the world. So that is so crucial. was you mentioning that, because most teachers don't realize how important that is. I've seen, in this conference, there are like thousands and thousands of other educators and leaders, and they kept talking a lot about how the content, what they teach, is important. How is that important? That professional development all the time. And then until I jumped in and I started talking about what you just mentioned, like, look, we as educators need to be humble enough to look into ourselves and, ask ourselves, okay, how can I, is there anything that I can improve in myself here? Is there anything that I have to access in myself here so I can grow? And if I grow, then my students will grow, right? My teams will grow too. So accessing that self-development part of it, what you just mentioned, it's so important. So based on that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I find it's really interesting that all these teachers are talking about professional development, and it's really that's the least important part. The least important part. I've been very blessed. I went to a Buddhist temple in Thailand a couple of years ago, and I went back again actually just about a month ago. And I had the opportunity. I was invited to speak and spend a couple of days with the senior Buddhist monk, the senior monk. And he imparted a lot of great information to me. One of the things that he said that as a teacher, there are 3 criteria. Number 1 is your curriculum, whatever you're teaching, which is what those guys were talking about at your conference. What you're teaching is important. But he says that's not as important as the second criteria. The second criteria is the way you teach it. Okay, so because there are more messages, more lessons being learned by how the teacher actually teaches rather than the content. And that's what we talk about. It's not what you teach, it's the way you teach it. Are you teaching it are you teaching in teams? Are you teaching with questions? Are you teaching by a duce pulling from people? Or are you lecturing and driving it down? Okay. He said the third component, more important than even the first 2, is who you are as a person. Because if you have kids, anybody has kids, that they can see right through you really, really quickly. And that's a skill or a sensitivity that all human beings have. And we need that in order to survive. But the ability, when a person sees you on screen, Hanna, or when they experience you live, who you show up as a person, it only takes people a few seconds to figure out who you are and what kind of a person you are. I mean, it's all done, and it's mostly done at a very subconscious level. But if you show up as a leader, as a genuine, as a connected person, as a person who really cares about them, not babysitting them, not trying to make things super easy for them, but a person that really has substance. That's what he said was the most important piece. And interesting. I just wonder how much of that is being discussed at the teacher conference.
Yeah, we also discussed a little bit about it, but in proportion. I think maybe tomorrow, in the day tomorrow, we're going to discuss more about the role as a leader, like together with those inspirations that you brought from that experience, from that conversation. It's also about something that we touched today. It's also about we as leaders having the responsibility to create places or spaces where the students can bring up their brilliance, where they can be themselves, where they can contribute, where they can think from themselves. So we started talking as well about it. So I hope tomorrow we're going to continue. But you spoke about skills, right? And together with what you said, what other skills or what other behaviors do you believe that teachers must have in today's world?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good question. I think that the skills of a great teacher as an educator, as I alluded to, the word education in English comes from the Latin word educe, which means to draw out of. So the ability to draw the learning out of people rather than pack the learning into them is critical. So that's kind of number 1. Number 2 is that that we talk about accelerated learning or super learning, use of color and music and games and activities and all that stuff, which I think the general education community kind of gets it. They don't know how to do it, but they kind of get that helps. But I think that in order to get people to engage, there's a high level of acknowledgement that's needed. Okay, so when I ask a question, when I'm asking lots of questions, somebody answers, I can say thank you. Okay, so as simple as that, when you begin to surround a person in acknowledgement, ask them a lot of questions, don't make it that easy for them. You're forcing them to learn the most important part of education, which is how to think. Not geography, not calculus, but how to think. And I think, and my experience, so I go back to the fact, what did I just read somewhere? There's over 5 billion people in the world that are on YouTube. 5 billion. Now think about that. Now, why people only go to YouTube for 2 reasons, right? Number one, maybe for entertainment and to learn something. Why? Why so many? Because the things that people want to learn are not being taught anywhere. So they go on YouTube and you don't even know if that education is valid or not, right? So I think that the third component is that the teacher, whoever's teaching, needs to understand whatever topic, they need to be able to exude that topic. You know, we call it, in our circle, we call it earn the right, through their own life experiences, to be able to share those experiences and have that sensitivity to it. I think teachers need to teach people in teams, teach them how to collaborate. Where in schools, when there's collaboration going on in school, teacher calls it cheating. And so we wonder why we have all these people resigning. The great resignation going on all over the world is because people are fed up. People don't want to work there they don't want to work for bosses that don't understand. They're willing to take the risk to go into business on their own, knowing that 50% of the people that do that will fail in the first 2 or 3 years. They're willing to take that risk. Why? Because the workplace is a function of an education system that is ill prepared for 2022.
Yes.
And I would say on the even darker side of it is that the amount of suicides, the amount of depression, the amount of alcohol, drug, substance abuse that's gone on in the last couple of years is astronomical. That's an indication of something not good, but it's something that's very solvable just by being in the presence of a decent teacher. You don't have to be a psychologist. You don't have to be a therapist, but you just need to understand some basics and be willing to put yourself out there and not be so concerned about yourself and what you want to deliver to the world. Be more concerned about the people you're talking to. Okay, it's a very different scenario. So our way of teaching and education basically takes education and flips the whole scenario. It's a 180-degree shift from what traditional education is. And that's why it's so powerful in such a short period of time.
Yes, thank you. And talking about the education system, as you said, we are not up to date, right? The education system in the world is not up to date to the needs of what, the challenges that we have in 2022 and moving forward. So if you were starting, now, what would you do to change the education system?
Well, I'd probably do what I'm doing now. If I were, I don't know that I could just start, because this is an evolution. As you get more experience, you get more experience. As you get more experience, you have more sensitivity. As you get more sensitivity, you have more awareness and clarity. And so I think that a colleague of mine by the name of Po Chung, he's from Hong Kong. He started DHL in Hong Kong, very big company, and he's now retired. But he said, he says for people that are in business, he said, it becomes a societal responsibility to teach what you've learned through your career. Okay, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a business owner, whatever it is, it becomes a responsibility that everybody needs to teach other people. Otherwise, we don't progress as a species. And I take a look at the news and take a look around, and I cite classic examples all around internationally that we have not learned our lessons. As a matter of fact, there's an interesting statistic, right? That great recessions, depressions, wars, all these things happen in like 50 and 90-year cycles, right? They recur. Why? You know why they recur? Because the people that were around when for the last war die off, and there's nobody left that remembers the atrocity of the war. And so they make the same mistakes again. Why? Because when the lessons were not learned and the lessons were never passed on. So we stagnate and we wonder why is this happening? I can't believe this is happening in our lifetime. And it's very predictable without good education. Okay. And so I could go on and on and on. But I think that if I were to start over again, I think that school would look very different. I think I go back to the way that Socrates used to do it. I mean, it's a mentorship type of a program. It's, you find the areas, you learn some basic things of how to cooperate, work in teams, very much like Montessori schools, and there's some other ones I can't think of the name right now, but where they mostly focus on children learning how to deal with life, working together. Then choose an area that interests you, and pursue that area and create those areas. And even big companies right now are not. What I just read the other day, Toyota, Nissan, they need engineers, but most kids can't afford engineering school. It's only for the elite, right? So what do? So they form their own schools. They buy hotels, turn them into dormitories, create their own universities. So they actually pay students to go to school so that they learn learn engineering without having to pay a lot of money, and everything's taken care of. We're in an educational crisis, right? And one of my teachers, and Mac Newton, says, great trainer. He says that crisis is change that's trying to happen. Crisis is change that is trying to happen. Great teachers understand that, and they let it happen, and they help accelerate it. One more thing, if I started again, there are a couple elements that a human being needs to know, and this might sound a little wacko, but if I were to create another education system, part of it would be to learn how to be an entrepreneur, how to sell, probably how to communicate, not how to just sit and listen.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. And listening to you, I was thinking about what I've heard from my colleagues in India. They were saying that, they graduate about 1 million engineers a year, but their data shows that not even 25% of those, once they graduated, they are ready for employment, which ties up with the question of, they might learn some of those skills during the university, but they not, first of all, like they were not taught with the best quality or with the best way of teaching that really makes them learn and prepare them for the real life, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So what you said is, and I work with a lot of people in India too.
Yeah.
And I can verify that statistic. These guys are very technically competent, but they don't know how to work. They don't know how to deal with life. They don't know how to deal with the real world, how to work in teams, how to create, how to correct if they make mistakes, and how to use mistakes to propel themselves forward, right? Whereas it's the other way around. So
absolutely. So quality of education is critical in all the ways possible, right? So now, in your opinion, I would love to know, talking about this quality of education that we want to deliver to our students, whether they are adults, children, or teenagers. In your opinion, what will be one book? I know there are several, probably hundreds that you would recommend, but what will be the one that all teachers you think they must read, in your opinion?
I don't know of one book. the book that I would read, most people can't read it. And because it's taken me like 10, 15 years to figure out even part of that book. And I was very much inspired by a fellow who was an engineer, an inventor, an architect, a futurist. His name was Dr. Buckminster Fuller. Dr. Buckminster Fuller, fondly called Bucky. He died in July, I think, of 1983. So I didn't meet him very much, but I studied his work. And that plus that one personal development program that I told you that I took changed everything, because he said something that I'll never forget in the book. And I got it right there. There it is, right there. Critical Path, okay, is the name of the book. And what he said is, he said, we all have the opportunity to live the lifestyle of, at that time, there were 6 billion people in the world, 6 billion billionaires. Now, not the cash, but the lifestyle and the life expectancy and the happiness of 6 billion billionaires, if we could just figure out how to work together, right? And back in the day when I was broke and a surfer and, you know, a sailor and all that stuff, that just, it struck me. I go, wow, I want that. I want that. And that line just has driven me ever since. So when you ask what's the one book, I would say it's not a book. I would say I would seek out Dr. Fuller's work, and I would read some of that stuff. I mean, he's written 30 books, and some of them, and again, if you're going to read his stuff, read it in groups. Don't read it in teams. So you figure it out together. It's very difficult to do on your own. So he really changed my life when it comes to that kind of stuff. I would say, you know, there are other great books that have been written since. You know, my sister actually wrote a great book called Quantum Teaching, Quantum Learning. That's a great series to read if you just want to get up to speed on the technicality side of it. But I think that if a teacher needs to be a leader, then you need to not just read about teaching stuff. You need to read about leadership stuff. You need to understand, what does it take to inspire a person? Think about it. What's education? Education is trying to impart knowledge to somebody else so they can change a behavior, right?
Yes.
That's no joke. That's a big deal. Okay. So for example, I always use the example, probably everybody watching this would like to be in better physical shape, right? Everybody says they want to be in better physical shape, right? And that's not such a difficult task, is it? Eat well, eat good food, drink plenty of water, get some exercise, right? Get some sleep. Yeah, it's don't put toxic things into your body. That's it. But why in America nearly 50% of the population is either obese or diabetic? It's not because the technicalities are that difficult. That's easy. What's difficult is inspiring a person to change a habit, to change a behavior that's taking them down the road to ruin and helping them get what they want. Okay, that's leadership, and that's teaching. That's why I can't separate the two words: teacher, leader, leader, teacher. It's a hyphenated word, or whatever you want to call it, because it requires both. And Robert and I were talking the other day that when we're talking about leadership, is that there is kind of dictatorial push down leadership, okay, and then there's leadership that lifts people up, which is the kind I'm talking about. It's not like do as you're told, do as you're told. Yeah, people need to be compliant to a certain degree, but when a school system was originally designed to control a massive population, it was designed to teach compliance, not to teach life skills. It was designed to prepare people to go in and punch in a clock and work in a factory. You know, and so the education system we have today is, in the course of human history, Hannah, is relatively new. I mean, it's just in compulsory education wasn't even around until the 1900s. Okay, so this little experiment worked well for the part of the industrial age. And then it quickly became a tortoise that got flipped on its backside and just, struggling, and it's broken now.
Exactly. That doesn't work anymore, right? Especially with the challenges we have in this new century. And you mentioned your recommendations in terms of a book, but you also just wrote a new book, and I would love to hear more about it. So what is the book about? What can you tell us already?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the book is going to be out in, the ebook will be out next month in April. The print version should be available in May. You can pre-order it. But it's called Summit Leadership, Taking Your Team to the Top. And about 10 years ago, so I've been a student of leadership and training, as you know, for many, many years. About 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Tanzania, Africa, and with my oldest son, and to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, which is like one of the largest freestanding mountains in the world. It's about 5,900 meters. And it was an amazing experience. And what struck me about this thing is that in a 7-day journey adventure on the mountain, because it's 5.5 days up and a day and a half down, in 7 days, most all of the lessons that I had learned over the years about business, about leadership, about training, about education, all got compressed into this 7-day microcosm that moment after moment, the lessons just kept coming fast and furious. Some were easy lessons, some were life and death lessons, but they all came boom, 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 like that. And under great leadership that we had with our leadership guides, in a place on an endeavor where of the 25,000 people that go to Kilimanjaro each year, less than 40% make it to the top. Less than 40% make that. Our group, 95%. And every group that we've done has been over 95%. And none of the people in our groups were ever climbers. But because of great leadership and because of great teacher leaders who are our guides from K2 Adventure Foundation, and very dear personal friends and became business partners of mine, the lessons of leadership, the lessons of how to take your team to the top, compressed into 7 days. So what I did is I created a book that took all those lessons and to give people a roadmap, a step-by-step trail guide. Okay, here's what you do first, second, third, fourth, fifth. When this comes up, do this. When this comes up, do that. And so it's really a trail guide to get your team to the top, and back. By the way, one of the lessons of climbing is you learn that getting to the summit of a mountain is only halfway. Okay, it's only halfway, because going up is kind of, you can get up to the top or not, but you got to get down. That's mandatory. Okay, and there's a whole lesson in all of that. So something that took me years to kind of figure out by trial and error with your businesses, and you get habituated into certain behaviors. Mm-hmm. In 7 days, it's right there. That's why I've gone back there. I've climbed it 10 times, because each time is a new distinction. And everybody that I've taken up there with our guides, I'm not the guide, okay? But everybody that we've taken up there has come back, and it's exploded their businesses, has massively improved their relationships at home, brought their kids back some to do it again, done it several times, because I have never, in my whole world of education, of teaching and training, I've never had an experience that has taught so many powerful lessons so quickly. And most people that go there don't even learn them. The reason they learn them is because when I saw that, I go, okay, wait a minute. This is a new environment, new context. We're going to capture this. And every single day, every single break, we're going to be discussing, what did you learn? What did you learn? How does it apply? How does it apply? And there are a lot of laughs, a lot of laughter, a lot of tears, a lot of huge light bulbs going off on people that become a part of your body. It's a cellular thing. It's a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, grueling experience, but an amazing experience. And as well as I do, Hannah, in business and in life, you could go from exhilaration to disaster in a split second. And that's what the mountain teaches you. But how to be able to manage that is priceless. And that's what the book is about.
I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to read it. You know, I've been listening to your experiences over the years about going all of those times to climb Kilimanjaro, and every year different lessons. So I can't wait to see all of them compiled and teaching other people through your book about all those important lessons. And you mentioned one of them, but you also mentioned about the importance of the conversations that you have with your teams while you're climbing, which is based on a fundamental question that I'm wondering if leaders and teachers ask this question to their teams and their students often, which is the question, what did you learn? Right? So exactly. That for me, it's so powerful, Blair. And I just, I just would love for you to comment more on that question and what do you see about it going on or not going on that you would like to emphasize? Because for me, that question is so vital. You know, I could not do what I do if it was not by asking during the experiences that we're living with our students, what did you learn? But I don't see other teachers doing that. So not the leaders. No, in my career, it wasn't often. So.
It's not like, what did you learn? It's like, here's what you should learn. Okay. So you're right. It's that question that is the game changer. You know, it's like, what did you learn? And the reason is because at that moment, we always say the quality of the question determines the quality of the response and the quality of the learning. So if a person goes through any kind of an experience, whether good, bad, or otherwise, we could say, okay, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should do this, don't do it that way next time. And maybe there's an appropriate time for that. But before you even get to that, the question is, what did you learn? Well, I learned that I'm an idiot. Okay, good. So is that what you want to learn? Do you really think you're an idiot? Well, sometimes. Okay, so beyond that, what did you learn? And you just be relentless about getting people to and by the way, asking that question out of the blue sometimes can be difficult. We always talk, as you know, we talk about something that leaders all know about, which is a code of honor, which is a set of rules that set the environment, the context, and the rules of the game. And one of those is that a person has got to be, if you're going to be part of BSTA, for example, you have got to subscribe to a couple of rules, one of which is take personal responsibility. No blame, no justification, no excuse making, and no delusion, okay, as best you can. So when I say to you, or I say to a climber, or we're sitting in our big geodesic dome tent at the end of the day at Camp 3, so what did you learn? And you say, well, I didn't learn anything. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Now I'm going to ask you one more time. What did you learn from that experience? So, you know, it's like we had a gentleman from Malaysia once. He was struggling so badly. He said, I can't make it. I'm going to have to turn back. And finally we said to him, I said, hey, Su Chang, what do you got in that backpack? And we took his backpack, and it was heavier than the porter's backpack. You're supposed to carry like 8 pounds in your bag with some water and snacks. This thing weighed almost 40 pounds. I go, dude, what are you doing? He's got extra tubes of toothpaste in there. He's got, extra blankets. He's got a laptop. What are you carrying all this stuff? And it pointed out, I said, so Su Chang, you're supposed to be carrying 15 pounds. What are you learning right now? And he just burst into laughter. He goes, this is my life right here. I go, what? He goes, I carry so much, excuse my language, I carry so much shit around and I don't get rid of anything. There's an expression on the mountain that says, it goes like this: pounds equal pain. Pounds equal pain. In other words, for every 1,000 feet that you climb into altitude, your workload increases by a certain percentage. So what happens is you were easy to carry around at sea level becomes extremely difficult when you're at 5,000 meters, right? So he goes, my office, my family, my life, my backpack, I carry all of these things around. He says, I gotta get rid of some of this stuff. which became a very big lesson for the team. And the team is that if you're trying to scale anything, scale your business, scale your life, improve your life, you got to shed some weight. And it's not just weight off your back, it's mental weight, emotional weight, people in your life that are bringing you down. Where are you carrying all this luggage and baggage around? And it was like, Hannah, it was visceral. You know what I mean by visceral? It was just like in the body kind of a lesson that everybody got, and he got it. And he went on back to Malaysia. He's an interior design guy, and he got, over the next several years, got awards year after year as being the #1 interior design in all company in all of Malaysia, you know, and he's a great friend. But these are lessons that go back to your question. What did you learn? I mean, that wasn't a lesson I taught him. I only asked him the question. I go, Su Cheng, so what are you learning right now? He goes, oh my God. And so that's true learning when light bulb goes on like that. And that's why I'm excited about the book, because it's filled with those stories. And then we go from experiences on the mountain to in the workplace, at home, and all that stuff. So it's really, really, it was a really fun book to write. I think that you're right. If you could impart that in your conference, ladies and gentlemen, there is only one question to ask. What did you learn?
What did you learn? That's it. That's it.
And what that also predicates is that there should be an experience before the learning, rather than a lecture. So you put people into an experience of some sort, whether it's a role play, whether it's a project, whether it's a game, whatever it is, and it can be anything. Mm-hmm. And then you say, okay, so what did you learn? And you know this as well as I do. One of the beauties of being a great teacher is that when you ask that question, you learn. Then you find that the real brilliance is sitting in the room, not up on stage. That the real brilliance is out there. So what did you guys learn? And all of a sudden you go, wow, that's good. You're writing it down. Wow, I wasn't thinking. I had these 3 things that I thought, but you guys came up with 4 more. Right? And so now learning we share learning, and learning grows. It's not a set of lessons in a syllabus that you must learn these pieces. It grows. And as we grow, the knowledge grows. What did you learn?
What did you learn? That's amazing, Blair. I love it. I love it. So we're getting to the end of this brilliant interview, but I still have one last question for you. So with all of that said, what is your message to the world? What is the message that you want to leave here for all of us?
I think there's a couple. I think the first one is the message that I tell myself, and that is that the distance between you and wherever you want to go or whoever you want to be is not a big distance. It's only the distance between your right ear and your left ear. That's it. Okay. People have a horrible judge of distance. It's going to take me years to do this. I'm not old enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not blank enough. And that's just not true. Is the distance between you and whatever it is you want, need, or who you want to be is only the distance between these two. And that's why as a teacher, leader, personal development, education, personal development training is critical. Again, 15 years ago, not a big deal. Today, it's not just skill development. It's got to be personal development. They have got to go together. Remember, to change the behavior is not just a set of technical skills. It's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. That's who we are as beings. School is mental. That's it. But on Kilimanjaro, it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all together, right? So that's one message. I think the other message is, I always said somebody, I thought if somebody were to write something on my tombstone one day, is that taught the world to teach. Taught the world to teach. Because I think if there's one thing that will save humanity, that will make humanity move to a whole new level of existence, is the quality of our education, the quality of teachers. I'm not talking about the quality of the public school system. I'm talking about the quality of education, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's in mentorship, whether it's in your business, whether it's at home, whatever. Teach the world to teach, learn to teach. That's my message.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was Blair Singer. Thank you so much, Blair. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say thank you enough how grateful I am for your presence here with us, for this brilliant, amazing insights you gave to us, as always. You know, even in one interview, in a conversation like this, you're already making us thinking differently, right? Think differently and open our minds and teaching us so much. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right.
Thank you for having me. It's been great questions, and it was just an honor to work with you. So thank you, Hanna.
It's great, Blair. Thank you so much.
Muito bem, muito bem. E aí, o que vocês acharam dessa entrevista? Estou vendo muitos de vocês participando, estou olhando aqui meu outro computador do ladinho, uma outra telinha para ver vocês, os comentários de vocês, e é muito bacana ter vocês aqui assistindo essa entrevista. Deixa aqui uma notinha nos comentários do chat para a gente saber o que você achou desse momento com o Blair. Que prazer tê-lo conosco e que prazer ter vocês aqui assistindo essa entrevista em primeira mão. Vocês estão sendo os primeiros a ver essa entrevista, então, que maravilha. Muito, muito obrigada pela presença de vocês. Eu queria aproveitar para dizer o seguinte, se você quer aprender um pouco mais ainda com o Blair, sempre tem oportunidades acontecendo, é só vocês começarem a segui-lo e também seguir a gente aqui nas nossas redes sociais. Se você ainda não fez isso, é só ativar aí o seu sino, se inscrever aqui no nosso canal da Life Level 10 no YouTube, e aí você vai poder ter outras informações, acessar outros vídeos. Começa também a seguir o Blair, né, no blairsinger.com, em todas as redes sociais, vai ser muito bacana se você tiver interesse em aprender mais ainda com ele. Estou vendo que tem muita gente aqui que já é aluno do Blair, ou já foi aluno do Blair, então vocês sabem do que eu estou falando, e vai ser muito bacana poder também ter vocês junto com a gente nesses diferentes programas, nesses momentos onde a gente está entrevistando educadores e líderes que fazem a diferença em todo mundo. E uma outra coisa que eu queria contar para vocês rapidamente, para a gente encerrar hoje a nossa noite, é que o pessoal da BSTA, da Blair Singer Training Academy aqui, vai gostar muito de saber. É que, lembram que o Blair disse uma frase incrível agora há pouco, né? Uma das suas mensagens, onde ele falou assim, a distância entre você e onde você quer chegar não é grande. É a distância entre o seu ouvido direito e o seu ouvido esquerdo, né? Ou seja, está tudo aqui na nossa mente. E eu vi aqui alguns comentários da Ana Paula no chat, né, falando um pouco sobre isso, como é que a gente gerencia essas vozinhas que ficam ali na nossa cabeça. Pois é, o Blair, ele tem um livro que chama Dominando a Voz Interior, e tem um programa de áudio também. E ele já tem isso há bastante tempo, né, que ajuda as pessoas a dominarem, controlarem essas vozinhas que ficam aqui na nossa cabeça. Mas agora, para vocês saberem, né, já em primeira mão, a partir de hoje a gente tem o programa de áudio do Dominando a Voz Interior em português. Em português. Então, para você que já é da BSTA, só me contata depois para saber como é que você tem acesso a esse áudio. E para você que não é da academia, mas que está aqui aprendendo com a gente, né, aprendendo com o Blair hoje, se você quiser também ter acesso a esse áudio, é só você... você pode clicar no link que a gente vai deixar aqui rapidinho no chat. Vou até colocar aqui para vocês já, um segundinho. Então, se você não é da BSTA e você quer ter acesso a isso, tem um link aí para você. Aí no chat você pode acessar depois. Agora, se você é da BSTA, depois entre em contato comigo para saber como é que você acessa esse áudio. Tá joia? Então, muito, muito obrigada. Eu e a Ariane, mais uma vez, queremos agradecer a sua presença aqui hoje. Foi um prazer compartilhar essa entrevista com vocês e espero que a gente se veja numa próxima oportunidade. Então, fiquem ligados aqui, dê uma curtida se você gostou dessa entrevista aqui mesmo no canal, se inscreva para receber outras notificações e saber quando a gente vai ter novos vídeos para continuar o seu processo de crescimento e de evolução. Então, um grande abraço para vocês e até mais.